Now, what is all this stuff? Also, I keep reading that Leslie Nielsen is a sex symbol as a result of these films.
Since I'm still doing funny stuff and working, maybe it's devolved down to me.
The comedy world is reeling as Frank Drebin, the bumbling legend of Naked Gun, delivers a haunting final revelation. Before his passing, Leslie Nielsen's iconic character unveils shocking secrets from the set that redefine the film's legacy.
This time, David is really gone for heavy-duty precision. And so we have been doing takes 20, 30 times.
From wild mishaps to hidden tensions, his confessions have fans buzzing and Hollywood stunned. So, what really went down behind the laughs? How will this reshape the Naked Gun mythos? Join us as we uncover Drebin's explosive truths and reveal the untold story, shaking comedy history. What happened on set? From Leslie Nielsen's side, the story took on a very different shape than most people imagined. To the outside world, he was the man who never missed a beat. The clever, quick-witted king of comedy who made every line land perfectly, every gag look effortless. His presence on screen gave the illusion of pure instinct, like the jokes simply rolled out of him without thought. He looked like someone who could summon laughter in his sleep. But the truth on set was more complex. Away from the neatly trimmed edits and the crisp comedic timing that audiences adored, Leslie was deliberate. He paced himself carefully, working with patience rather than speed. He knew the value of silence, of allowing a pause to stretch until it snapped into laughter. His rhythm was slower, not because he was lazy, but because he understood that comedy often lived in the quiet spaces in between. For the young director, though, those silences were unnerving. He was new to the job, eager, nervous, desperate to prove that he belonged in a room full of seasoned professionals. Where Leslie saw timing, the director saw dead air. Every pause felt like a mistake. Every beat like wasted seconds that might sink the film. And so, on their very first day together, the tension revealed itself. The director, swallowing his nerves, leaned in during a take and whispered gently that Leslie might try picking up the pace. It was a small note, an attempt at direction, but for Leslie it became an opening for mischief. Instead of quietly nodding or brushing it off, he turned toward the crew, lifted his voice, and declared with a grin, "The kid wants me to go faster." The words hung in the air. The crew froze, unsure whether to laugh or stay silent. The young director's face drained of color. To him, it felt like a spotlight had been thrown on his inexperience, as if Leslie had put his youth and insecurity on display for everyone to see. For Leslie, though, it was never meant to humiliate. It was half a joke and half a test, his way of discovering how this newcomer would handle the weight of pressure that always came with a production. The director did not laugh. He steadied himself, finished the day, and later, with quiet determination, pulled Leslie aside. His voice carried more honesty than bravado when he said, "We've got 72 days together. Please, just give me a little slack." Those words landed differently than Leslie expected. He was used to directors snapping back, defending their authority, or retreating into silence. But this young man didn't bluff. Beneath the nerves, Leslie recognized grit, the kind of resilience that could outlast the chaos of a movie set. As the weeks rolled on, the two men continued their uneasy rhythm. The director pushed, Leslie resisted, yet somehow the footage that came back was stunning. The studio, not easily impressed, sent word that what they were seeing was exceptional. When Leslie heard, he felt a rare surge of admiration. He even told the director so, an unusual gesture for a man who wasn't known for giving out praise lightly. But admiration did not erase what Leslie saw in the young man's eyes. The director idolized him, yes, but he looked perpetually haunted, like someone battling invisible storms while trying to steer a ship through violent waters. Leslie could sense the exhaustion building, the weight pressing down. It wasn't just the stress of leading a film crew. There was something heavier, something personal. On set, everything changed when the director's young daughter was rushed to the hospital. The rookie's mask of control crumbled, revealing not just a filmmaker, but a father in anguish. Leslie Nielsen's view shifted. He now saw the man behind the job, balancing film and family. From then on, Nielsen's respect grew deeper. Beneath his playful teasing was recognition of resilience. While audiences enjoyed effortless comedy on screen, Nielsen remembered the hidden storms, a father's quiet courage, proving that true strength often lies not in power, but in the endurance to keep going through life's chaos. In which movie set did this happen? What kind of movie was it? Let's delve into the details of the movie where Leslie Nielsen played the character of Frank Drebin. The Naked Gun. The Naked Gun, originally born as Police Squad, is far more than just another comedy experiment that flickered across screens. It is a phenomenon, a franchise that cemented its place in Hollywood history as one of the most inventive, outrageous, and unforgettable crime spoof comedies of all time. When it first appeared, few could have guessed how this odd mix of slapstick, parody, and clever satire would come to reshape how audiences thought about police dramas and comedy itself. Behind the Police Squad was the brilliant trio of David Zucker, Jim Abrahams, and Jerry Zucker, masters of turning seriousness into comedy gold. They cleverly used the familiar tropes of crime dramas as setups for chaos, layering in wordplay, slapstick, and visual gags that felt both silly and smart. In 1982, Police Squad debuted as a parody series with only 6 episodes, yet its humor was so sharp, quick, and densely packed that it stood apart from everything else on television. While some audiences adored its outrageous style, mainstream viewers weren't ready for its rapid-fire delivery, leading to its swift cancellation. But the show's comedic DNA endured. What seemed like a short-lived experiment on TV became the foundation of something much larger. Police Squad was not the end, but the beginning. A bold idea destined to leap from small screens to global fame through the Naked Gun films. What followed was the evolution into full-length films, and here the formula truly exploded. The comedy that television couldn't quite contain now had room to breathe, expand, and grow into cultural landmarks. Over the years, the Naked Gun franchise would deliver 4 feature-length films and even a video game adaptation, ensuring its reach spread far beyond a niche TV audience. At the core of everything, the glue that held the chaos together was Detective Sergeant Frank Drebin. He was no ordinary cop. In fact, he was almost the complete opposite of the polished, all-knowing detectives we were used to seeing on screen. Drebin was clumsy, awkward, and constantly one step away from disaster. Yet somehow, through accidents, misunderstandings, and sheer dumb luck, he always managed to solve the case and save the day. That strange mix of incompetence and effectiveness made him one of the most endearing comic characters in film history. Bringing Frank Drebin to life was Leslie Nielsen, an actor whose career took a remarkable turn when he embraced comedy after decades in dramatic roles. Nielsen perfected the art of deadpan humor, delivering the most ridiculous lines with such seriousness that audiences couldn't help but burst out laughing. His straight-faced approach elevated every gag, making the absurd believable and the silly unforgettable. Through the original series and the first 3 films, Nielsen's Drebin became an icon, capturing not just laughs, but also admiration for his unmatched comedic timing. The beauty of the humor lay in its layers. On the surface, it was silly, filled with pratfalls, physical comedy, and jokes that could make children laugh. But underneath that silliness was razor-sharp parody, a clever skewering of the police procedural genre. The films poked fun at how dramas portrayed crime, authority, and justice, holding up a mirror to television tropes and twisting them into hilarity. This balance allowed The Naked Gun to resonate across generations, entertaining both casual viewers and comedy enthusiasts who appreciated the craft. Decades later, when many thought the franchise had finally run its course, it staged a daring revival. In 2025, a brand new installment arrived, introducing a fresh yet familiar face, Liam Neeson as Frank Drebin Jr. Taking over from where Nielsen's legacy had left off was no small challenge. Fans were skeptical, critics were cautious, and the pressure was immense. Yet against all odds, the film struck gold. Neeson's unique take on Drebin Jr., a mix of his own gravitas with the inherited clumsiness of the Drebin name, won over audiences. The 4th film managed to do what few revivals ever achieve. It kept the heart of the original while pushing the humor into a new era. Longtime fans were satisfied. New audiences discovered the joy of the franchise, and critics marveled at its ability to stay funny in a modern world where comedy has become harder to nail. Financially, too, it was a triumph. From modest beginnings as a canceled TV series to a global box office force, the Naked Gun franchise once again proved its timeless charm. What began as a quirky little spoof had, over time, turned into one of comedy's greatest legacies. Through brilliant writing, unforgettable performances, and fearless parody, The Naked Gun carved out a corner of Hollywood where seriousness is constantly under attack by absurdity, and where laughter is the only law that truly matters. Who was the old Frank Drebin, who revealed what happened on the Naked Gun set? Let's dive into the details of the Canadian-American who spent about 6 decades on the screen. Leslie Nielsen. Leslie William Nielsen, O.C., born on February 11, 1926, and passing away on November 28, 2010, was far more than just an actor. He was a true legend whose name became synonymous with both gripping drama and unforgettable comedy. A Canadian-American star with a career spanning an astonishing 6 decades, Nielsen brought over 220 characters to life. He appeared in more than 100 films and 150 television shows, making him one of the most versatile and enduring figures in Hollywood's long history. His ability to continually reinvent himself kept audiences captivated, proving that talent and adaptability can turn a performer into an icon. Nielsen's story began in the early 1950s when he ventured into the world of live television. In 1950 alone, a year that would test even the most determined beginner, he performed in 46 live television programs. Each performance was a new challenge, a new role, and a new opportunity to showcase his growing skills. That sheer volume of appearances showed not only his stamina, but also his deep commitment to mastering the art of acting. Live TV was unpredictable and unforgiving, yet Nielsen handled it with confidence, setting the foundation for the career that followed. By 1956, his journey took a new turn. He moved from the demanding world of live broadcasts to the silver screen. At first, he played supporting roles, but he did so in a wide range of genres. Dramas, westerns, and romances filled his resume during the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s. He wasn't yet the man audiences would laugh with, He was the serious face in stories of tension, action, and romance. Among his most respected roles were in the groundbreaking science fiction classic Forbidden Planet in 1956, where he played a strong, no-nonsense commander, and in the disaster blockbuster The Poseidon Adventure in 1972, which showed him as a credible dramatic presence. These roles earned him recognition as a capable and respected dramatic actor. For a time, Hollywood saw him as someone who could anchor a story with strength and sincerity. But the story of Leslie Nielsen took a dramatic twist in the 1980s, one that no one could have predicted. He was cast in Airplane, a film created by the comedy team of Zucker, Abrahams, and Zucker. Unlike anything he had done before, this outrageous spoof demanded humor rooted in seriousness. Nielsen didn't just rise to the occasion, he redefined comedy. By playing his character with an absolutely straight face while chaos unfolded around him, he invented a style of deadpan humor that felt groundbreaking and timeless. What made it so funny was that he wasn't trying to be funny, at least not in the traditional sense. His seriousness, delivered in the middle of absurdity, became comedy gold. Critics and audiences alike noticed. Legendary film critic Roger Ebert famously called him the Olivier of spoofs, a title that perfectly captured Nielsen's mastery of parody. With Airplane, he stepped into an entirely new career path, one that would make him a household name across the globe. From that point, Nielsen's fame exploded with the Naked Gun film series. These movies, born from the short-lived yet cult favorite television show Police Squad, cemented his reputation as one of the funniest men alive. As Detective Frank Drebin, Nielsen portrayed a character who was both heroic and hopelessly clueless. He walked through absurd situations with total seriousness, utterly unaware of the madness happening around him. That obliviousness was the joke, and Nielsen's flawless timing turned it into comedy that transcended generations. Fans didn't just laugh at him, they laughed because of him, because his straight-faced delivery made ridiculous scenes even more hilarious. What makes Nielsen's career so fascinating is that he excelled in two very different worlds: serious drama and laugh-out-loud comedy. Few actors can claim that kind of range. Early in his career, he convinced audiences of his authority, sincerity, and gravitas. Later, he made those same audiences roar with laughter by using that very seriousness as the punchline. It was a reinvention so complete that younger fans often knew him only as a comedian, unaware of his dramatic beginnings. By the time his career came to a close, Leslie Nielsen had become much more than an actor. He was a cultural icon. He left his mark in both television and cinema, shaping genres as different as science fiction and slapstick comedy. His contributions earned him numerous honors, including a place on Canada's Walk of Fame and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. These recognitions reflected not just his success, but his lasting influence on the entertainment industry. When Nielsen passed away in 2010, the world lost a performer who could make us believe in commanding starships and surviving disasters, but who could also make us cry with laughter at the silliest of jokes. His legacy is one of range, resilience, and reinvention. Leslie Nielsen didn't just entertain. He proved that the true magic of acting lies in surprising audiences and never being afraid to take risks. Even today, long after his passing, his work continues to inspire actors, delight fans, and remind us that sometimes the funniest thing in the world is simply keeping a straight face. Naked Gun was the return of a TV series that went on for a short while. How was Frank Drebin's return to the screen received? Let's find out. Frank Drebin's hilarious comeback. 6 years after the short-lived TV series Police Squad was abruptly canceled, many thought the character of Detective Frank Drebin would fade into obscurity. But in 1988, Leslie Nielsen brought him back to life in spectacular fashion with The Naked Gun, from the files of Police Squad. What followed was not just a revival, but a roaring cinematic comeback that would forever cement Nielsen's name in the history of comedy. The plot of the movie was deliberately outrageous, balancing on the edge of the ridiculous. A ruthless addict with ice in his veins hatches a wild scheme involving mind control technology. His target? None other than Queen Elizabeth II during her visit to the United States. On paper, the idea sounded absurd. How could anyone possibly mix slapstick humor with an assassination plot against the Queen and expect it to work? Yet somehow it did, brilliantly. The reason was Leslie Nielsen. Known earlier in his career for serious roles, Nielsen leaned into the comedy with an unexpected weapon: his ability to stay completely serious while chaos erupted around him. His deadpan delivery turned every exaggerated situation into something hysterical. He didn't wink at the audience, didn't play for laughs. He played Drebin as if he truly believed every mad thing happening around him. And that, paradoxically, is what made the comedy soar. Even more remarkable was Nielsen's dedication to the role. Instead of leaving the physical comedy to stunt doubles, he often performed the stunts himself. He explained in interviews that for an actor, the vision of a role only fully comes alive when they personally take those risks on screen. He believed authenticity mattered, even in a parody. That commitment paid off in spades. Audiences responded not only with laughter, but also with admiration. The film became a runaway hit. It pulled in more than $78 million at the box office, a staggering number for a spoof comedy at the time. Critics were equally charmed. Roger Ebert, the legendary film critic who wasn't always generous with comedies, awarded the film 3.5 stars out of 4. He perfectly captured the experience of watching The Naked Gun when he remarked, "You laugh, and then you laugh at yourself for laughing." It was a comedy that made fun of itself, the audience, and the world all at once. The triumph of the first film naturally led to sequels. In 1991, The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear hit theaters, and to everyone's surprise, it outperformed the original, earning an even bigger $86.9 million. The franchise had become a cultural phenomenon. 3 years later, Naked Gun 3.5, The Final Insult followed, closing out the trilogy with a respectable $51.1 million at the box office. By then, Drebin had become an iconic figure in comedy, and Nielsen had fully transformed into a legend. Even after the trilogy ended, Nielsen wasn't ready to hang up Drebin's trench coat. In a 2005 interview, he confessed that he would have loved to make a fourth Naked Gun movie. But with age catching up to him and the studio's lack of interest, he admitted the chances were slim. Still, his passion for the character showed how much Drebin meant to him, and to the fans who adored the bumbling detective. But Drebin's world didn't just live on in the movies. In 1994, Nielsen appeared on WWF Monday Night Raw alongside co-star George Kennedy in a parody investigation skit about the disappearance of wrestler The Undertaker. True to Drebin's style, their investigation ended with a literal case-closed gag, shutting a suitcase. Wrestling fans roared, and it proved that Drebin's brand of comedy could fit anywhere, even inside a wrestling ring. Nielsen also carried Drebin across the Atlantic, starring in a series of witty British TV ads for Red Rock Cider in 1990. The commercials were sharp, playful, and filled with that same tongue-in-cheek humor that made Drebin beloved. It showed how the character could thrive outside film, seeping into pop culture in the most unexpected ways. Through movies, wrestling sketches, commercials, and every comedic avenue available, Leslie Nielsen made sure Frank Drebin lived far beyond the canceled TV show that birthed him. What began as a failed series turned into one of the most enduring comedy legacies of the 20th century. Drebin wasn't just a detective. He was proof that with the right actor, the silliest of ideas could become timeless comedy gold. Unfortunately, Leslie is not able to take up the Frank Drebin character in the latest Naked Gun shooting, as he died 15 years ago. Was his death sudden? Was he struggling with an ailment? Let's dig into the details surrounding his death. Leslie Nielsen's death. In November 2010, the world lost a man who had become a household name for his ability to make audiences laugh without even cracking a smile. Leslie Nielsen, the Canadian-born actor best known for his unforgettable performances in comedy classics like Airplane and the Naked Gun series, was admitted to Holy Cross Hospital in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. His health had been delicate for some time, and those close to him knew he was battling complications. Still, few could have predicted how soon the end would come. On the evening of November 28, 2010, at around 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Nielsen quietly slipped away in his sleep. He was 84 years old. The cause was pneumonia, a condition that can be especially unforgiving in older age. For a man who had lived so much of his life under the spotlight, his final moments were not filled with noise or spectacle, but rather with peace, dignity, and love. His nephew, Doug Nielsen, broke the news during an interview with Winnipeg's CJOB radio station. With a calm voice tinged with emotion, Doug explained that his uncle had not been alone. Surrounded by his family and closest friends, the comedian who had given so much joy to millions around the globe was ushered out of the world in warmth and comfort. Nielsen was later laid to rest at Evergreen Cemetery, a tranquil site in Fort Lauderdale, not far from his home. It was a simple, serene place. Exactly the kind of quiet spot one might imagine for a man whose life on screen had been filled with chaos, slapstick, and over-the-top hilarity. But Leslie Nielsen had never been one for convention. True to form, he could not resist leaving the world with one last laugh. On his tombstone, instead of a weighty phrase about legacy or eternity, he had requested that the words, "Let her rip," be engraved. For anyone familiar with Nielsen's humor, the choice was unmistakably him. It was cheeky, lighthearted, and perfectly in line with the man who had spent decades showing us that even the most serious moments could be flipped into comedy gold. The inscription wasn't just a joke, it was a final wink, a reminder that life is too short to take seriously. Even in death, he wanted people to smile. A little more than a week later, on December 7, 2010, those who loved him most came together for his funeral service in Fort Lauderdale. Friends, family members, colleagues, and admirers gathered to honor a man who had left an indelible mark on both film and comedy. Yet, unlike many funerals, the mood wasn't one of heavy sorrow. Instead, it was celebratory, an atmosphere more fitting for someone who had spent his life turning tears into laughter. In one particularly moving and memorable touch, the theme music from The Naked Gun filled the room. This was no accident. Nielsen's role as the bumbling but lovable detective Frank Drebin had been his crown jewel, the role that transformed him from a serious actor into one of the most beloved comedians of his generation. To hear that music at his farewell was like watching one last scene from his life's script, a scene that he himself might have written, ensuring that even in death, he stayed true to his greatest passion, making people laugh. For those in attendance, it was as if Nielsen was still directing the show, timing the jokes, and choosing the soundtrack. The laughter that rippled through the crowd was not disrespectful. It was healing. It was a reminder that grief and joy can coexist, that remembering someone can mean celebrating their best moments rather than drowning in sadness. Leslie Nielsen's departure from this world was, in many ways, the perfect ending to his story. He passed peacefully, surrounded by love. He left behind a legacy of comedy that will live on in films cherished by generations. And, most importantly, he signed off with humor, his favorite language. That tombstone inscription, "Let her rip," summed him up better than any biography ever could. Even now, years after his passing, people still recall his straight-faced delivery, his knack for turning absurdity into brilliance, and his unwavering ability to bring joy. Leslie Nielsen may no longer be with us, but his laughter echoes on. For a man who spent his life making others smile, perhaps there could be no greater immortality. Before his death, what was Leslie Nielsen's life like? Did he retire from acting before his death? Let's talk about his activities in his last years. Leslie Nielsen's final acting years. In 2007, audiences witnessed a surprising reminder of Leslie Nielsen's range when he stepped away from his usual comedic roles and appeared in the drama Music Within. The film showed that Nielsen was more than a master of parody. He could also bring depth to serious storytelling. For many who had grown used to seeing him as the king of deadpan humor, it was a refreshing look at the other side of his talent. Yet, it did not take long for him to return to the world where he had truly become a legend: comedy. By 2008, Nielsen was back to doing what millions loved him for: making people laugh. That year, he delivered a memorable performance in Superhero Movie, where he played a hilarious twist on Uncle Ben, poking fun at the endless stream of superhero blockbusters filling theaters. It was a perfect fit. Nielsen's ability to treat ridiculous material with complete seriousness made even the silliest jokes unforgettable. Later that same year, he teamed up once again with director David Zucker in An American Carol, a bold satire that mixed politics with slapstick absurdity. Once again, Nielsen's straight-faced delivery turned outrageous scenarios into comic gold. The laughter rolled on in 2009 with Stan Helsing, a wild parody of horror classics. Nielsen's presence gave the movie its punch, as he knew exactly how to anchor even the most outrageous spoofs with his trademark sincerity. Around this time, he also extended his reach beyond Hollywood. In Spanish Movie, he played a doctor in a comedy that poked fun at Spain's most famous films, much like Scary Movie did with Hollywood hits. With that, Nielsen's humor became global, proving that laughter truly needs no translation. Looking back, Nielsen's career is nothing short of astonishing. He appeared in over 100 films and an incredible 1,500 television episodes, taking on more than 220 different roles. But it was not just the numbers that made his career remarkable. It was the transformation of his image. In the early 1970s, before he was the comedy icon and the world remembers, Nielsen was best known for his commanding, serious presence. He appeared in countless commercials for major brands such as the Bank of Montreal, Ford, Shell, and Dollar Rent-A-Car. At that time, advertisers relied on his authoritative voice and trustworthy demeanor to sell their products. He was the picture of reliability and professionalism. Yet, as the years passed, his career took a fascinating turn. When he embraced comedy, everything shifted. The same stone-faced seriousness that once sold cars and banking services now became the secret weapon of his humor. In commercials, films, and television, that blend of authority and absurdity became his signature. What was once seen as gravitas now made audiences roar with laughter. From dramas to slapstick spoofs, from television ads to international comedies, Leslie Nielsen showcased a versatility few actors could match. His ability to reinvent himself, from stern authority figure to beloved comedy legend, secured his place in entertainment history. More than just an actor, he was proof that reinvention, timing, and fearlessness can turn a career into a legacy. So, what do you think about Leslie's revelation on the Naked Gun set? Was his action really rude? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.